Hey everybody, it's Brandon Williams here. I've got Lee LaRochelle with us. He's from Atlantic Home Mortgage. He is going to be discussing the first-time home buyer process and some advantages that he has and some experiences and stuff that he has experienced in his time as being in the mortgage industry. So Lee, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and let us know what you got to tell us.
Thanks, Brandon. I appreciate the time. And hello, everyone. My name is Lee LaRochelle. As Brandon said, I'm a mortgage broker here in Atlanta, Georgia, licensed in 8 states, primarily focused on residential business. Uh, and today, yeah, we're going to be talking about first-time home buying. Specifically, what I kind of like to address on these kind of initial talks is the trepidation, is the fear, is the kind of I can't mentality for a lot of people because it's a big task. I'm not going to lie. We're not going to hide behind this. You're asking a stranger to borrow hundreds of thousands of dollars. And first of all, that shouldn't be taken lightly. That is a serious thing to do. But with the proper preparation, with all the planning and getting ready for it, we can create confidence out of this. We can create excitement out of this thing. And I think for me, that's what I focus on first is really unlocking all of what we do and lifting that kind of the Wizard of Oz veil, pulling it back, and just letting you know what we look at. And it's simple. It's really simple in its nature. It's income, it's your credit profile, and assets. Those are the three. And then there's property and taxes and government. But in terms of the initial steps, we're really looking at these three pieces. Are we employed? Do we pay our bills? And what kind of money do we have in the bank? And even for those that I would say are worried about the middle thing, the credit. That's really what scares a lot of people.
Yeah.
You're more than likely not as bad as you think you are, or there is a way out of the hole that is most of the time an easy path.
Do you guys do credit repair? Or do you have companies that you work with to do credit repair for those out there that might be in a situation where they need that?
I do. I take it in 4 stages. One, I look at about 2 dozen credit reports a week and have a somewhat decent knowledge on what to do.
Sure.
Uh, really credits it's at its core is will we pay for what we owe? Can we pay for what we owe? So it's a will and a can. And there's certain indicators on each credit report that we can do on our own. But if we can't, the other three options are I've got three people that I work with. They all work in three very different ways. I present those ways, and I'm a very more metaphorical speaker. So when I talk to clients, I let them know that you know we walk through. Um, I let them know how each person works. So kind of like Waze or navigation. Tell me you want to get your credit better. I'll give you the three kind of routes we go, whether it be scenic
Sure.
or highways only, and you tell me what you like, and we connect you with that person. They all give free quotes. One of them is zero cost, so that's an easy one right there. Um, and you can get quotes from all of them if you want. When it comes to that, yes, we take those. That's the way we go. Either we do it ourselves, we make an introduction, but then I have a sheet specifically built for people that are in credit repair that I do touch points monthly to make sure that we're walking through this because it is an uphill climb for some folks in 10 foot of snow. So letting somebody know you're there with them is, I think, an important piece of that as well.
What type of programs do you have? Because I get a lot of first-time home buyers that they're in a situation where they don't have a lot of money to put down. A lot of them are younger. I know when I was younger, I didn't have a ton of money to put down. And in the area that I bought in, there was a rural home loan, but I think they call it USDA now. I think they switched over. That was just the common name that it was called back then. So I used a USDA loan, and I didn't have to put a down payment down. I got a lower interest rate, very, very favorable terms being a first-time home buyer. What's out there now for people to take advantage of?
And there's so many. There are so many. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm a broker. I think the most important thing, two most important things there. One are every client gets my cell phone. I chose a long time ago not to work 9 to 5. I work 24/7. So I'm here when you need me. And number two, I have multiple lenders to work with. I about 15 in our book. I like about 4 or 5 of them. I won't say in case they see this, but I work with a very small few. But going back to that metaphor, right? Maybe not the metaphor, but as a lender, you can be cheap, you can be faster, you can be the best. So we walk through that. And as a broker being having all this access to 15 lenders, they all have different programs. They all want our business. They all want your business. So as programs ebb and flow, we have those available to us. Things that we have right now, first of all, depending on where you live in certain metro areas in the nation, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia is one of those. So Metro Atlanta, they're doing a $6,000 grant forgiven
Wow.
day one. And based on two things, are you a first time home buyer? And where do you live? We have three different down payment assistance programs. And with any program, I'll tell you right now, outside of that first grant, which is just free money, there is it's not all sunshine. It's not, ain't no such thing as free lunch, really. So we will flesh out every one of them. One of them is forgiven, one is forgiven after a year, one is never forgiven. All of them have kind of a give and a take. But even off the one that you're forgiven after a year, they're giving you up to $16,000 towards the purchase, but you have to use their rate for 1 year.
Wow. Okay.
And in some cases, that's a couple $100. So if I gave, let me ask you this, Brandon, if it was $200 more for a year, that's $2,400, right?
Hmm.
If you gave me $2,400 and I gave you back $16,000, who do you think made out better than the
Yeah,
other
that's a
person?
no-brainer for sure. Yeah.
So we walk through those with everybody, and people make the decision based on what's best for them. But we have a lot, yeah.
Okay. You had to excuse background noise. I chose to sit outside today. I know a lot of buyers, especially the first-time home buyers. I just spoke to a lady yesterday. She didn't even know how to get the process started, didn't even know what it was to talk to a lender or even had lender contacts. So can you just explain? That's getting loud. Sorry. Um, let that pass, maybe.
We can't hear that here.
Um, Can you explain to them what type of documentation they'll need, and kind of what that process is? Obviously, you've talked about income and debts, but explain to them, what will they need to be prepared to provide to you so they don't have to be scrambling to get stuff together, so they can just come in the door knowing what it is they have to have.
It's really simple for most people that have 9 to 5s, W-2 jobs. We need a driver's license. We just want to confirm identity, 30 days of bank stubs, and 30 days of pay stubs. So 3 docs. That's really it. I mean, once we get down to 1099s, we talk about taxes. I have a client. We have a client working on purchasing a home now. He's a sole proprietor, and he decided to show just 12 months of bank statements as income, and he's writing off for now. It's really simple. The hardest part is picking up the phone and understanding the process. Um, Really, we look at those three key pieces. It's really just that simple.
Sure. Now, your application process, how does that work? Do you guys have an online application? Do you prefer people to call you directly to do that? How do you process those?
I offer it to the client, whatever's easiest and more comfortable for them. I'm meeting a client Friday at noon down in McDonough. We're gonna eat lunch. He's got a little area in this restaurant he likes to go to that's in the back and private, and we're gonna do an in-person application.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, yeah. Customer service. Absolutely. That's fantastic. Haven't heard of anybody actually doing them in person before. It's either coming to my office or here's my link. Oh, that's a step above. I appreciate that. Um, is there a fee for your application? Because I know there's a lot of people out there that fear that.
No, there's not a fee at all.
Okay.
The only fees are when rubber hits the road, we find the house.
Outside of the normal lending costs that people would incur, such as closing costs, are there any fees? I know home inspections, a lot of people don't understand home inspections, but are there any other fees that they should be prepared for to pay out of pocket outside of closing?
Outside closing is only two things that people would come have to pay for. One is the appraisal, depending on how fast we need it, or if we need a rent schedule. Those range from 550 to, depending on. I've seen them go to 1,200 when people need them the next day, but I would say they're generally in that $500 to $600 range. And then a credit report, $75 is the credit report fee. That Yeah, that's it. Those are the only two things outside. And then on your end with the inspection and things like that, earnest money.
And home inspections depending upon the size and the inspector and what all they get done. So I don't ever quote those. That's you talk to the home inspector and they'll give you the quote on that. They're usually in the $500 range, but there's a lot of add-ons inside the home, and there again, efficiency and stuff that you were speaking about. But is there anything else that you can think of that we should tell the first-time home buyers? You know, it's really an easy process. I've bought several houses myself. It's not that complicated. Of course, I've sold countless, so I know the process fairly well. But is there anything that they need to, any apprehensions you can think of that might keep them from doing that?
The biggest one is okay, two things that I would say to that. Number one is when people say they want to wait because of the climate. And I'll give you a quick scenario here. I spoke with a client a year and a half ago when rates are in the mid to high sevens. Um, Incredibly qualified person, $500,000 purchase. We're ready to put 20% down, but the rate wasn't where this client wanted it to be. So I asked them simply, what rate do you want? And they wanted it not a 7.5, but they wanted a 5.5. And I went through a quick scenario of, okay, we can wait and you can save because that jump, but that 2% jump can save you 500 up to $500 a month, and 6,000 in a year is a good amount to save towards the purchase if you wanted to wait more towards down payment and such. But that $500,000 house now, and I'm speaking specifically to kind of Metro Atlanta, we're at a 9% appreciation rate, but for the sake of this, I did 6. Stack it against me. That house next year is not going to be 500. It's going to be $530,000. So if you want to wait, ask yourself, would you rather $6,000 in your pocket or $30,000 in equity? Which, Brandon, I think you can tell them as well that that's real money.
It is. I was actually going to ask, that was going to be my next question when you talk about interest rates. I'm glad you hit that. And that's something that we fight with daily as realtors as well. We're constantly telling people, if you wait until the rates drop, the buyers are going to flood the market because there's a million people out there sitting and waiting, doing the same thing you're doing. Next thing you know, those prices are going to go up. I've got an investor that I've worked with for years in Tennessee. He's like, oh, I'm waiting for the bottom to fall out. And I was like, you might be dust before that happens, buddy. It's not going to happen. We're not going to see a decline. There's still buyers out there. There's still a ton of activity. And a lot of sellers are holding their houses off the market because they did get such good interest rates. So we're going to have to wait for relocations, deaths, just complete upending of people's lives for whatever reason. We're not going to see a flood of foreclosures like people are, predicting. We'll have some. There's always an ebb and flow with that, but I don't foresee a huge upset with the market. And people who are waiting, they're just going to end up paying higher prices. It's going to cost them in the long run.
And something you mentioned, sellers flooding the market. So if we just mentioned that 6 versus 30,000, which I'm taking the 30 all day. That's me. When sellers flood the market, the first thing, so we got the next 60 days, we kind of have an idea what's going on. And even through November a little bit. Right now we have most of my offers are going in asking for seller concessions up to 6%. We got 3% on one yesterday. I got 6%. The first thing that goes is seller concessions. The second thing that goes is you have demand, and then you have to go above and beyond the ask.
Yep.
And then in addition to that, you're removing contingencies, and God forbid we have to waive inspections, waive appraisals. That's a very dangerous area to play in. Going back to the first thing, we talked 5 versus 30. When your seller concessions of 10% or 2% on a $500,000 house of 10,000 goes away, that's really a $40,000 gap. And now you have to have an offer 1 or 2% more on 500 or 540. Now you're talking 50. It's no longer 5 versus 30, which was already, we know what the better one is. It's now 5,000 versus or 6,000 versus 50.
Right.
There's no reason.
Sellers are definitely a lot more willing to negotiate now than they were 3 years ago. I didn't even have to list a house. I had sellers calling me saying, hey, I want to list my house. I made phone calls, had it sold before it was ever on the market, got an offer in, listed it, had it in the system as pending as soon as I put it on the market. I mean, it was 24 hours. And I did that because and a lot of sellers want you to put it out on the market, get multiple offers in, but then you've got all the weeds you got to go through, and you have to weigh them all, put them on spreadsheets. You get 30, 40 offers in. And my thing was, well, tell me the number you want, and I'll go get it. And if that's satisfactory, we'll have this thing wrapped up in 30 days and we don't have to weed through all that. If that's not what you're comfortable with and you want to go for the multiple offers, we'll do that. And I did do that on some, but especially on the investment properties, most of the investors are like, look, just get me the number I want, get me out of the property. I got another project I'm working on. because I worked with investors a lot up in Tennessee. I do primary residences, obviously in Georgia. I still do the investment properties in Tennessee, but that was that market. This market obviously is completely different. So we're getting the seller concessions. We're getting, more on repair. Negotiations and stuff like that. So if you're looking to purchase, it definitely is the time. And rates can always be bought down. There's 2-for-1 buy downs, all kinds of things that you can do out there to try to get that rate down. And then I always tell people, you date the rate, you buy the house. It's just an old cliche that's been used for years, but you buy the house now, you get it at a cheaper price, you pay that high interest rate till the rates go down, you refinance. And a lot of lenders, I don't know if you have programs like this, a lot of lenders I've worked with in the past, if you go back to the same lender, they'll cover closing costs, or they're waived, or whatever the case may be. Do you guys offer anything like that?
Yeah, we have, so they can cover dramatic reduction in underwriting or waiving it altogether. For us, processing is waived. We have an attorney that we work with here in the Metro Atlanta that has a significant reduction in his rate. We can't cover the attorney fees,
Sure.
but for the most part, these things are coming. When we do a refinance, if anything comes to the table, we make sure it's a break even at 6 months. So you're recouping that money before you make your fourth payment.
Sure.
Uh,
That's fantastic. Okay, well, is there anything else you can think of that we should tell anybody before we get off of here?
yeah, one last thing on asking about what
Oh, yep.
earlier
That's a
about
good point.
totally fine. If you think you can't do it, pick up the phone and let's talk. The answer is yes. I'll tell you right now, we can get this done. It may not be tomorrow. We may have a 6 month ramp. We may have 12 months of fixing to do. But I'll tell you what, right now, until you look under the hood, you can't start fixing it.
Right.
Until you know what the issue is, you can't start that clock. And talk with a lot of people, and I'll do one more metaphor here. People are saying I'm working on my credit. Well, that's like saying, and I know a lot of us can work out on our own, but I'm gonna go work out without a trainer, and I want my abs to be I want washboard abs. Well, why are you doing squats? Why are you doing pull-ups? And it's not that credit is such. I wish they taught this. I wish they taught this stuff in schools. There are certain things you can do to your credit, and you could be putting money in a place that's not giving you the churn and the incremental increase. And I'm speaking specifically to credit, but that's what I hear a lot of. So if you think you can't do it, pick up the phone and chat and just see if it can be done or when it can be done. So don't let fear stop you.
Yeah, it's the same thing we always say. You guys have mortgage conversations, and we try to have real estate conversations. It's just have a conversation. You never know. That's why every single person I talk to, they say they haven't talked to a lender. I said the very first thing you need to do is talk to the lender before you ever even talk to me. Before we look at houses, or you even tell me what it is that you want to purchase, you need to talk to a lender, because we don't even know what you can afford, or if you're even in a position to be able to purchase anything right now. Very few are lucky enough to be able to do cash. Those are a godsend for us realtors. But, that was the lady yesterday. She was like, "Oh, I'm looking for this, this, and this. Have you talked to a lender?" No. Contact the lender first. I sent her your information. I said, contact the lender first, and let's see where we can go from there, and if there are steps that need to be taken before you can actually get into that situation. So, okay, well, is that the last thing you got to say?
I think that's it. I think we can continue to go down wormholes and fun things all the time.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We can. Well, if you want to go ahead and give us all of your contact information, how people can reach you, I'll make sure that's in the post as well. So if you have any questions or concerns, contact Lee. He is a great resource. Been doing this for a while, and there get 8 states. Will you list those states for us again while you're giving us your contact information?
Absolutely. So Kentucky, Tennessee, South and North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, and Texas.
Fantastic. Okay, and then how do we get a hold of you?
Yeah, my cell phone's the best way. 678-372-6915. And if I don't pick up, I will call you back. It comes directly to me, and that's always with me.
Okay, sounds great. I'll have your email address and everything in the post as well, and your website, so they can check you out. And there again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to comment on the post or reach out to him directly. And I hope everybody has a blessed day.
Thanks, Brandon. Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
sir. Take care.
Bye now.